Madeleine Dean, Democrat for Pennsylvania, member of the Judiciary and Financial Services Committee, and former impeachment manager, we should note. Always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining me. Let's get to Chairman Benny Thompson, who's also saying the committee would issue criminal referrals to witnesses who refuse to obey subpoena deadlines. What is your reaction to this? And does that mean that if, say, Mark Meadows decides not to testify, that he could ultimately end up behind bars?
Well, this is deadly serious, so I commend the chairman for the work that he and the entire committee are doing and for the serious nature with which they are taking this investigation. Not only do we owe this report to the American people, we owe it to democracy. What they are examining is not just a question of our past and what happened on January 6th. It is a question of our future. And will this attempted coup happen again? So I'm very pleased with the chairman. Jamie Raskin, of course, is just a constitutional scholar and a mentor and a friend. He's absolutely right. This is deadly serious. What we saw under the previous administration, you were a witness to it when we subpoenaed Don McGahn, for example, how long it took, what a circuitous
2 years.
What a hiding. Yes.
2 years.
And finally an agreement that he came before us. We can't do that anymore. One of the things that I have is legislation that has also been incorporated in a much larger bill, which is the bill that is protecting American democracy, because that's really what's at stake here, is a subpoena compliance bill. So Democrats, even with a Democrat in the White House, are prepared to move forward and make sure that we hold every president accountable to the law, that no president is above the law, as we saw Mr. Trump tried to hold himself.
11 new subpoenas being issued this week from the committee, focusing on the organizers of the event there on January 6th. What kind of role could these people have played? What are the questions you want to have answered from this? I should note that you may have heard my interview with Omarosa in the last segment. She pointed to Katrina Pearson, someone with whom she worked, and she said, look, she was all about the money. Is that a question for you, where the money came from, for this rally?
What I kept saying as we were preparing for impeachment trial number 2 was, what did the president know and when did he know it? What did those around him know and when did they know it? And who funded what? You're absolutely right. Follow the money. Millions of dollars were poured into the event that took place on January 6th that resulted in insurrection, Americans attacking Americans. So absolutely, whether it's Mr. Bannon, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and all of the other players, we need to know what they knew, who funded what, and when did they know it. It is very telling that after the insurrection took place, that President Trump, then President Trump, did not immediately call for help. It's very revealing of his state of mind, of what he had hoped would happen that day, that all hell would break loose, as Mr. Bannon is quoted as saying.
Yeah, and his reaction to what he was witnessing there. The chairman also said more subpoenas will be coming out shortly. To whom, potentially? Who do you want to see come to testify?
I don't know, but certainly his campaign folks who were a part of the funding of this, any of the speakers that day on 1/6, but also the Republican leadership in the House. Why is it that Mr. McCarthy came out after the insurrection and said the president was responsible? Why is it that he also came out in favor of and helped the negotiation of an independent commission, and then suddenly turned around, went against his own member, withdrew his support for the independent commission, suddenly distanced himself from the president's known wrongdoing? So what does Mr. McCarthy have to hide? And other members of the Republican Party, of the Republican caucus, what do they have to hide that they want to call January 6th another tourist event? There's something they must be hiding. Let's take a look at their phone records. With whom were they speaking? With whom was anybody planning?
Let me ask about the infrastructure negotiations. President Biden spoke with you and your fellow House Democrats yesterday on the Hill. What's your takeaway from that meeting? And did it bring you, ultimately, you and your colleagues, closer or further away from the finish line?
Well, Alex, you know, yesterday was a fantastic day for our caucus. I have to tell you that. We are like a very big family, and I come from a very big family, so it's not always smooth and easy. But there was real progress yesterday. We had quite a long caucus earlier in the day, and then the president joined us for what was a standing room only caucus. Everyone was there. He was extraordinarily well received. And what it showed me was real unity. Unity behind these two programs. Unity behind a president and his vision, but unity for the American people because of the possibilities of these programs. How they will lift children out of poverty. How we will better educate children with universal pre-K. When we offer free community college, think of the economic engine that will be, and will free young people from the burden, the heavy burden of college debt. Between paid family leave, Social Security expansion to cover vision, dental, hearing, it sounds like that should have already been in Social Security, frankly. But if we actually do this and fund these incredibly important programs, they will lift the many, it will lift our GDP, it will tamp down on inflation, it'll grow jobs. So yesterday, I found to be a very forward-moving day of greater unity coming out of the second caucus with the president because we see what this can do for the American people.
Can I ask you about the image that you have over your left shoulder there? I notice it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This on a day when across this country women are marching to protect abortion rights, a woman's right to choose. Reflect on the makeup of the court without Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the fact that Amy Coney Barrett replaced her.
Tragic. And that's why I do love having Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Ginsburg, look over my shoulder. That was given to me by a friend of mine who is a leading independent woman of perhaps a generation older than I, and I learned from her. So I thank her for that. It is tragic what has happened to the Supreme Court with the stacking of the court by Mr. Trump, who has no understanding of the Constitution nor curiosity about it. What the Supreme Court did in the Texas case is staggering. These are supposedly constitutional scholars, and yet what they did by allowing that law to go into effect was, to me, unconstitutional, because the law of the land is Roe v. Wade. So how they allowed Texas to strip women of their rights of abortion services, to try to chill women's rights to health care, and they're having that effect, frankly, is shocking. And to me, it's unconstitutional, literally, by the actions of a Supreme Court on a Friday afternoon without really putting their money where their mouth was. I honor these women who are marching. They are marching in the spirit of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we will prevail on this one.
Something that we're showing, I should say, to our viewers on the left of the screen, live pictures from Washington, D.C. of that march. They are going from Freedom Plaza right to the Supreme Court. They're making their way down Pennsylvania Avenue as well as Constitution Avenue, apropos, indeed. Madeleine Dean, always good to speak with you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Drawing the line and making star players lose part of their salary. A doctor weighs in next on the trouble in the NBA over vaccine resistance.